Namaste, everyone.
Namaskar, how are you doing?
Very good. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's a good day at the beach.
Oh, really? You're at the beach?
No, you are.
No. Yes, absolutely. It's very cold here, but that beach gives a little bit of pleasure.
Is it
Namaskar.
or are you really at the beach?
No, she's at it's a very cold beach.
Namaste all.
Ushaji, congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Maya ji, Kuvar ji, namaskar.
Namaskar, everybody. Yeah, people are coming up.
I'm just responding to her email from today morning.
Oh, you did?
Maya ji's email, so.
Oh.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. So namaste, everybody. And congratulations, Ushaji. It's lovely to see everyone.
Thank you. Lovely. Oh, I was wondering why your voice was not coming through. Give me a second. Okay.
I think it's early morning fog, brain fog.
We'll begin in, I guess, another minute or so. Meeting ID number from Divyaji. 1 second.
Divyaji wants passcode as well.
Passcode as well. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what she says in the chat.
Mm. I've typed that out for you, Divyaji. It's 1081008.
Guruji, I'll be back. My dog is barking. I'll just check on him. Thank you.
Sure, sure. Namaskar. We're going to begin in 30 seconds. Prachiji, I will begin with the opening prayers and some opening comments, and then we'll turn it over to you and talk through everyone's reflections.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Namaskar, we're going to begin. Namaskar and welcome to our session number 21. This is, of course, we're in the final stretch of the CHT program, and I am your alternate faculty for today's session. We're going to begin with the opening prayer as always. So please sit comfortably. If you like, you can turn your videos on. Please sit comfortably in any posture, sitting with the back straight. The back is straight but not stiff. The back, neck, and head are in a straight line. Sitting upright with the back, neck, and head in a straight line. If your feet are on the floor, make sure you have full foot contact with the floor below, and just relax your heels, relax your thighs, relax your face, relax the expression on your face, closing the eyes gently, and now let the tongue become heavy and fall down to the bottom of the mouth. Relax the tongue all the way back to the throat, and then relax your shoulders. Breathe into the belly and let the belly expand as you inhale. As you exhale, simply let go. Breathe into the belly and let the belly expand. As you exhale, let go of all your thoughts. Let go of all your preoccupations. Breathing into the belly, let the belly expand. As you exhale, let everything go and feel a sense of relief. Sweep through your body. Feel a sense of lightness as you inhale and exhale. Now bringing the palms together in Namaskar Mudra, pressing the palms together gently, touching the back of the thumbs gently into the chest. Bring your attention to the hollow space between the palms and feel the vibrations, sensations, any pulsation in the hollow space between the palms. We are going to chant Om 3 times and then the opening prayer, Sahana Bhavatu. Exhale completely, take a deep breath. Inhale. 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 Inhale and chant. Sahana Vavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavitvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Take your arms behind you, grab your right wrist with your left hand and breathing in, stretch. Breathing out, bend forward in a deep sense of surrender. Come back up, breathing in, release your hands, rub your palms together to generate some heat, and then gently cup your eyeballs with the hollow of your palms, transferring the heat. Blink your eyes open and let the warmth travel into the eyes, and then while still blinking, pull your palms back like an open book. Namaskar. Namaskar and welcome to session number 21 of our discussions. We are in the final stretch of our course now. Just a few more classes to go. Before we, today's topic, we have covered this from a Hindu spiritual angle previously. We have also covered these topics from the professional angle earlier. We're looking at stress, we're looking at loneliness and grief. These are all topics we have somewhat covered, but this time we had doctors, clinical basically practitioners talk about these issues and talk about their experiences in handling client conversations. As I went back to re-listen to these, I had some things to share as my reflection. But before that, I do want to remind you that you have each received an email from Ushaji. This is an email containing all the relevant information about your homework requirements, about your ODPs, and so on. So now your graduation is in your hands. You have to take charge to finish any homework requirement you might have above the minimum, and making sure you work with your resident faculty and finish out your ODPs in time. There is a lot of time between now and finishing, about 2 months, but you have to take charge and run it. And so that's the PSA, the public service announcement I needed to make. Please go look for your email and please point out any discrepancies that you might notice so that we catch them in time. Ushaji, is there anything you want to add to this announcement?
Wonderful, Gauravji. I can always depend on you to give the best. I think this group, it doesn't apply, but if you do run into issues with your ODPs or you're not happy with where it's going, we have offered alternatives. So please read that email very, very carefully. And like Gauraji said, anything that seems inconsistent, please do reach out to us. Okay, thank you. Looking forward to every one of you graduating.
Looking forward to everyone graduating and serving the community.
Yes.
So thank you
Ideas
for,
about that, right, Gauraji?
yes, very much. So today's topics, Dr. Bhatt, I have to give you more context. Dr. Naresh Bhatt was the founding dean of this program. He and Kusuma ji, his wife, who he mentions in the lecture, are both wonderful human beings, and they have both mentored scores of doctors. And a score is 20. So when I say scores of doctors, people that wanted to be doctors, they gave them the formula to becoming doctors, and so on. So they are amazing personalities. And Dr. Bhatt also, of course, is a very impactful teacher. His lecture on stress is interesting because between him and Kusumaji, they have done a lot of research on stress and biofeedback and anger altogether. If I went to their office a few times, and they have a biofeedback machine, they run it. It's very impressive, and there's a lot to learn in that. What I took away from this is, of course, that stress isn't just in the head, it hits the body. And this was, again, every time I watch this lecture, I'm also reminded of this, that it impacts the heart literally in this case. And so it's very important to understand and manage stress, as well as expressed and unexpressed anger. While an iceberg is cold and cool, the iceberg model of anger is not cold or cool. It's in fact the unexpressed anger that does not show up is often a lot more that we're dealing with. So, of course, your talks today are going to be related to stress, I suppose. So I expect to hear more from you on loneliness and grieving. Punitji's lecture was, as always, fantastic. I have a few more things to add to it. First itself is, in terms of rituals for grieving. One is, every time I hear Punitji, I'm reminded that grieving is not a problem to be solved. As people as counselors, we're not there to say stop grieving or be done with it or get over it. It is not a problem to be solved. It's a stage that people need to cross, and it's a natural response of the body and of the spirit to whatever loss that is being experienced. And so we're not there to rush people along. We're just there for them so that they can naturally go through this process of grieving and get to the other side when they still experience the loss but are no longer grieving. I had talked about this earlier when we had talked about loneliness a few months ago, where one interesting hypothesis is that a lot of the loneliness and depression that we're experiencing is because we are essentially experiencing symptoms of grief on account of losing connections. And that particular book was very interesting, not written by a doctor, so it may not be scientific at all, but his claim, and I will repeat it for today's conversation, is that a loss of connection to ourselves, to nature, to each other, to purpose, meaning, all these connections, when we lose them, we experience a sort of grieving, which is natural only in the medical community. Grieving is a natural process only when there is a physical loss of someone you love. But now we are experiencing the same grieving, but for losses of other things other than just individuals that we've lost. And therefore, those are, that state of depression is something that we need to work with people on. But again, grieving is a natural part of the process, and one must not seek to rush people along. We just have to be there for them. And again, what I also liked about what Puneetji said, often we would counsel the grieving party by saying, I know how you feel, but no, even if you do know how you feel, that's not our job. Our job is not to tell them that they're not alone in grieving. We have to tell them that they're not alone, period. And that's all. We're just there for them. In a personal sense, I have to tell you, this week I lost a friend, and he was a very fine, evidently young man, and I use the air quotes for that. Where we met like 3 or 4 months ago in India, and he was fine, and amazing guy, and he was a policeman in India, like a super cop, and one of the best people that we had in our batch, just a wonderful guy. And then we suddenly get news that he's no more, and we are still, all of us in our class are still dealing with that loss. How do we process it? Who do we talk to? What do we talk about? And that lack of closure, that lack of grieving is hurting the community. It's hurting me, it's hurting all of us, because how do you process that experience? And if you don't process it, it sits heavy on the heart. And then it just, it just weighs on you. And so I found this this talk quite touching in that sense, because this week we are all, my batch is experiencing that loss all of a sudden. And so that's that. So those are my reflections on these two talks. Dr. Bhatt's talk, of course, I'm expecting to hear from you on that. And Puneetji, I'm her substitute for today, because she was not able to make it to today's conversation, but I'm sure she will listen to the recording. So if you have feedback for her, please do say it, and Puneetji will listen to it when she watches the recording. So with that said, Prachiji, I turn it over to you, and we can go through the class with any feedback, questions, or reflections.
Sure. Thank you so much, Gauravji. I personally thought the lecture by Dr. Bhatt was just super fantastic. And same thing goes for Puneetji as well. I think because they have been working in their field for such a long time, it really helps us. And I think where it helps us, that it perhaps doesn't give us direct tips to implement those, but I think it helps us in making us aware of what is coming. So it makes us aware that yes, we have a stress, and what can we do about it. So I think it's those tiny steps that we should take in our daily routine. I mean, since I've heard Dr. Bhatt's lecture, I have been thinking about it every time. If I have a stress, like something's not going right with my son, something's not going right at work, and then it sort of kicks in, like, is there anything I can do? What can I do to get better at it? What can I do to handle it in a better way? So we can't obviously eliminate the stress from our life completely, but I think we can take baby steps towards dealing with it, and then it makes us aware, and that helps, that prevents any effect on your body, happening on your body. So I remember I watched one of the lectures a long time back, and then the guy said, now just imagine a slice of lemon on your tongue, and just keep that lemon on your tongue for a few seconds. And as soon as he said that, as soon as you hear that, your mouth starts watering. Now that's the visible effect that it has on it. But because because we can't see the hormones kicking in, we don't realize it, and we only realize it when the body starts experiencing it without us consciously, thinking about it. But just one trigger, and your heart starts racing, and that's when you know that all these things are actually true. So he has given some fantastic methods on meditation, and the most important point I felt personally was helpful is do not doubt the method, because that's the first thing we have. This is the age of instant, we want everything instant. You make an order, you place an order, your food is ready in like 5 minutes. And if it takes 10 minutes, God forbid, you are so impatient, like, where did the guy go? And then you are you are tracking the Uber guy on the map because you're so impatient and you want it right at that instant. So he said, like, not to doubt it, be patient, just trust it that it will work. And meditation is not something instant, like, it's not going to give you results in 2 days or like 20 days or something. You have to be at it for some time. And same thing with Punitji's lecture. I found it really, really helpful. Yes, it was, as Gauravji very rightly said, it might not help us get over it, but it will give us great insight into how we can deal with it. And not personally, but then if someone is going through it, how can we be patient with them? Like, how can we give them a helping hand so they can get, so they can get better at dealing with it, and so eventually they will come out of it. So I think the lectures were super, super helpful. If you have any questions, Punitji has asked me to post it on the link, and then she said she will get to it when she gets a chance. She's in Europe right now, and obviously we will discuss the questions if you have any, and Gauravji is here to help us as well. So now with that, I will now just call out the names of people who have who are going to represent, and then we will take it from there. So thank you so much, Gauravji, for making it with us today, because Punitji is not in, and so filling it in for her. So for Diraksha Sukhdev from Group 12 from South Africa. So over to you, Diraksha-ji. Thank you.
Namaste all. I was really enlightened by all of the lectures, and it sat very well with myself and my team. Stress is a physical and emotional state of worry or mental tension caused by difficult situations. My high pressure job and lifestyle leaves me feeling burned out. I've introduced exercise into my daily routine and have started walking for 30 minutes every day. I have found that exercise has helped me manage stress and gave me more energy. I often struggle with sleeping due to overthinking. However, ever since I have started practicing meditation, I found that it has helped calm my mind and improve sleep. When it came to the grief and emotional part of the lecture, I have just lost a very good friend, colleague, who actually became a family member, and that was overwhelming to myself and my family, and that caused significant amount of stress. And in the experience of losing my friend or a parent in other cases, we feel that a wide range of emotions such as sadness, anger, hate, guilt, and confusion, and we struggle to come to terms with the reality of the situation. Therefore, we face many challenges in coping with grief. In addition, we felt that being overwhelmed with responsibilities that comes with the planning of a funeral or memorial service becomes the worst stress ever. Therefore, the overall stress of losing a family member can take a toll on a person's physical and mental health, and it may take time and support that can help the person in the grieving process and to recover. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diraksha-ji. Now, may I please request Shirin-ji to say, to represent, please?
I'm not seeing her. Are you seeing some?
I think I haven't seen her as well. I think last time she sent an audio. I think so, from memory,
Right.
but we haven't heard, like, we haven't received anything from
No.
her. Okay, so we will just skip her for the time being, and then we'll come back to it later if she joins. Maya-ji, may I please request you to represent?
Namaste, everybody. I must say that both videos have been very, as Diraksha-ji said, enlightening and informative. I think that whatever role we play in this world, we experience some form of stress in any form. And I think managing those stresses is our biggest challenge. I found that I feel like the thread of management of self runs through this whole program. So I somehow feel like we are repeating ourselves all the time. But it's a reiteration and a reminder, constant reminder of how reflection and introspection is vital in managing our lives, hence then managing the stresses that we experience. I think for myself personally, and it is what it is, if I implemented the breathing practices and meditations before becoming a mother, my anxiety about getting things right would have subsided and perhaps prevented my eldest daughter from experiencing anxieties. But anyway, I think it is her journey to find her way to deal with her anxieties. I can only be there to support. We in group 4 all agreed that implementation of stress relieving tools such as meditation or breathing exercises, even exercise, just 30 minutes of walking every day, is more about prevention rather than cure. Through these spiritual practices, we can reflect and introspect when experiencing stress at work, for example, and then learn about our expectations, fears, and beliefs, hence continuing the management. This then, this thread also runs into the topic of death, which which does create much trauma, hence not discussed freely or openly. I mean, I personally know that when I start talking about, when I die, to my children, then I said, please, can you not bring that topic up? But it's relevant, it's important, so that that also relieves the stress from my children and the family. Thank you, Punitji, for explaining grief, loss, and bereavement so eloquently, and important factors that we need to keep in mind. It does put things into perspective. Understanding that each individual grieves differently gives one a perspective as to how to counsel. One shoe definitely doesn't fit all. We concluded that at the end of the day, knowledge of self with the help of our scriptures helps us to alleviate the stresses we experience, even when it comes to death. The unavoidable path of our journey is birth and death, or unavoidable death. I mean, it's inevitable. How we embrace birth, I think that if we can embrace death just as one of our, you know what I mean, something that is inevitable, then, it's a choice we make. How do we want to embrace this? How do we want to approach this topic? And yeah, I think there's so much more I can add, but I feel like it's a topic that does cause stress. But again, I think introspection and trying to work through our fears and so forth can help us through managing these things. I think that I really liked, I work with, I do alternate healing, and I know that the body doesn't lie. So I love the concept of the broken heart, because I personally experienced the broken heart issue within the family with my dad. I also liked what Dr. G spoke about, talking to somebody about what you experienced in the day, your emotions, and what did your body experience. I think that also gives us an idea of how to be in touch with one's body, and how to be in touch with self, so that we can then work through any emotions or any issues that we may have experienced day by day, and not just let things build up, like a ball that gets held underwater, and suddenly when let go, it is thrown into your face. So that was very, very basic understanding or feedback from my group. Thank you once again for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for sharing, Maya ji. That was really wonderful. May I please next request Vaishali ji to represent? Thank you.
Sorry, just when I was about to start, my daughter just walked in, so I had to tell her I'm just about to speak. Namaste, everyone. It was actually a really good lecture from Dr. Naras Bhatt, and obviously Puneet ji is always wonderful to, like, you know, she gives really wonderful examples, and her lectures upon grief and explaining different type of grief was really good. With Dr. Naras Bhatt's lecture, it was more because I'm an engineering student, so for me it was like more like sitting in a like, you know, science class and learning about new things. And there were quite a few misconceptions that I had were actually cleared by that lecture. Sorry, I thought someone else opened the door. Sorry. First thing was like about first misconception that I had is like, you know, if you're angry, you should, like, you know, try and do some physical activity to divert that anger. And, like, you know, I thought that was actually constructive, but when what Dr. Bhatt said is, like, you know, working out while angry is actually bad for your health. And I thought, like, you know, going to gym if you're angry would be actually more helpful for you. But then, yeah, it's completely. So that was a big misconception that I had, which was clear. Then broken heart syndrome, I didn't even know it's something like that existed. And his explanation about how it, like, you know, came from, like, you know, Japanese octopus trap, and like it was really good. I mean, I wouldn't have, if I would have just read it on internet, I would have connected those two things. The one more thing that he said about, like, you know, use of savasana to control your anger, and I thought was really good, because I never took it, like, you know, I never thought that savasana, like, you know, there was actually a neurological reasoning behind, like, you know, using that asana to control the anger. I didn't know, first of all, you could control. So that was also really good. Just give me 2 minutes, sorry. Sorry, it's just my kids have been a little bit running around today. So those were the things really good. And then his explanation about his comparison about Big Mac as a meal and Big Mac about the nutritional things, that was also really good. So yeah, all those things were, and then in Puneetji's lecture, how she's explained about, like, you know, how to deal with different types of grief and how to deal with that. And also she's explained that, like, you know, even if the person dies, the relationship doesn't die, which is a very important and very thoughtful thing. And I would agree with Gaurav, like, you know, it does gives us a lot of like, you know, it does gives us we have to think that how would we deal with it. It's a process. So when I lost my uncle, because he was younger than my father, and that was the time where I really felt what grief was and how it affected me personally, because every time I would accept it, okay, that's a chakra of life, you know, it's like life and death, and, like, you know, with age, or, like, you know, once your good karma ends. And but that was the only time where, like, I thought was like sudden and unexpected, because he just fell down and he went in coma and he never came back. And I mean, I wish I knew few of these techniques to deal with it. I think the only thing that helped me is because I was not in India and I was here, so that physical distance made it difficult initially, but then at the same time made it easier for me to deal, because, like, you know, when you are, like, you know, if I would have gone to my house, obviously I have memories with each and everything, and you relate, and you know, the whole process gets a little bit longer. But when you're away from it, obviously there's nothing that's more related, because it's never visited me here, so it doesn't get that longer. So and it makes it so. I think few factors that, you know, I mean, when I was obviously reading through it, it just came to know. But it was really good lecture. And, like, you know, how Gaurav always says in his lecture about fight and flight response. So that's also obviously Narasji's talked about. And then what I really found him talking interesting is, like, how him and Kusumji handles their anger, like, you know, how they've got the strategies. That was really helpful. I think that's mainly what, yeah. And yes, I really want to try that biofeedback machine if I ever visit any, like, I don't know if they have anything like that around here, but I would really go and check. Like, I'm really inquisitive about checking my own levels on biofeedback machine. But thank you, but it was very insightful lecture. Thank you.
I believe, Vaishali ji, that Apple, Google, Facebook, they're all working on devices, basically your watch or your phone. They'll be able to build that sort of technology soon.
I actually feel like, I don't track my sleep or anything, because I feel like, when you track things, sometimes it makes, like, sometimes it's like ignorance is a bliss. When I track my sleep,
Yeah.
I'm more worried about, oh, I didn't have a peaceful sleep. But when I don't track it, okay, I just had a sleep, it's finished, and I'm out of it. So like, there's always an advantage of having the technology and disadvantage as well. Like, sometimes it's just not knowing about a lot of things. Ignorance is a pure bliss.
Yeah.
But no, it was really, really, I would really want to meet Dr. Naras, like, if he could ever come on any of the lectures. Like, as in one of our live sessions. I would really want to see him. But thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Vaishali ji. Gaurav ji, do you have anything to say?
No, I'm good. This is great. Thank you.
Thank you. So next, may I please request Shankar ji to represent?
Namaste, everyone. This is Shankar from WA. I hope you guys are able to hear my voice. So basically, it was an exciting and eye-opener. Both the sessions were really, really intriguing. Dr. Bhaji was awesome. We learned a lot of things about it, but just to be, and many of them have been already said. But then some of the things, like, there was a time when fight and flight mechanism was definitely the way you can survive, but now it has just converted into survival or die for a good life, basically paying your mortgages, maintaining good relationships, career, health, material needs. And then in the process of this life, one gets into something called the word stress, which I think was always there, but how you deal with this is what is important. And Bhaji has, as well as the other sessions, I introduced us to a lot of means of sorting it out, like meditation. Shavasana was a wonderful eye-opener. Like, if you are anger, it's always better not to go out and then lie down dead. Then loneliness, well, for us who are not in India, well, where we go out and you have so many friends around to talk to. Here it's like, you need to take appointment, or you need to go some function and then you see them. So that's another thing which I discussed with my wife, how it could be dealt with. Definitely, it's very important to talk to and interact with our close friends and family members with the problems that you're facing. Of course, many of them, they may not understand, or they may not, even with your adolescent kids who can have a fair idea, it's always better to talk to. So definitely you'll get a response from them, and also they will come up with their issues with the exams. As the lovely lady said, ignorance is bliss. I think ignorance is bliss if we have the right method in our life to sort our health issues, mentally as well as physically. As Bhaji said, right eating, mindful eating, and can really play a very major role. So it says, like, what you eat is what you become, or what you eat and how you eat is what you become and what you get in the body. So we were very much thinking on becoming vegetarian, because yeah, what you eat is what you get. So like, if you want heart issues, then definitely if you don't want heart issues, definitely switch you to vegetarian and get those cholesterol off. Gut bacteria was another great eye-opener, like germ cells, which play a very major role. So keep them happy, keep your gut happy. And sleep is another thing. getting things done on time, like sleep. If you're getting the proper sleep, it would definitely make a big difference. Then another example, like I hope you guys must have watched this movie, Kerala Files, Kashmir Files, and that there are many files that are coming. Well, with me, like if you see, these things doesn't make you stressful, but when you see, oh, BJP is lost at Karnataka, and then it makes you different. Oh my goodness, what's going to happen? So is there anything that I can do about it? I think I can do something about it. Sitting here, maybe help them. Like you have this Kashmiri Hindus, Hindus on Pakistan who are coming back, and Rajasthan aspect. So different stress for different. I won't say use the word stress, but there are different things that affect you. So how do you counter it? Like this is what. So maybe So what I found, like talk to them, find out how I can help them, how I can involve with them, so that you are finish the gap and you feel something good you have done. So these were some things with respect to loss, grief, and loneliness. I think as a volunteer, this is definitely going to make a big difference in how you deliver your service. Basically, grief, loss is a part and parcel of your life. That means everyone has to face it, but it all depends. How do you how good are you in dealing with this? Basically, with respect to the rituals that we have, definitely, I feel these rituals were made in a way just to recover well. Like if you go step by step, instead of well, this is what I tell to my children. Like these rituals are very important that you do, whether it's puja or this. And another example, like I come from, well, I would never have this thing like there's anything called stress. Of course, when during exam or when I'm facing you guys, my heart is pumping out. But the point is, you take it as it comes. This is how I was, whether it was cycle racing or catching the train in Bombay. These things, like you always had it, but it's a part and parcel of the whole game. So as rightly somebody said, ignorance is bliss. So ignorance with right methods, is bliss. Like in case if you're in a train, then you can always focus on your breath, how just to bring it, calm yourself down, and then find yourself in a better position. Say if you're going for an interview or anything else, like calm down. Yes, another example which we thought of, like if in case when you're an army or defense, like you see in movies, what happens is like, your colleague dies and then the other person runs around. I mean, he doesn't wait for that person. And then in the long run, what happens when the person is about to retire or when he comes back, he has those episodes coming into his mind. And maybe because he didn't get the right kind of support after that, psychological support. You must have heard of a lot of police doing suicide, as well as in army. They have got lots of mental issues. So I think we as a volunteer will have a great role to play in case if we do get the right advice, right session which we are getting. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shankarji. I was reflecting on what you were saying on stress when you were saying that, some political events happening. You're not even in India or Karnataka, and you're thinking, okay, what happens if BJP loses? There's a quote I picked up on the internet, of course, which was beware the vividness of transient events. That events that are passing appear extremely vivid, very luminous, very colorful. There's a lot going on, but they're just passing events. Tomorrow there's another event, and day after tomorrow another event. You have to learn to, I think we have to train ourselves to understanding that these are just passing events. The other idea, again, this is not the subject of today's session, but I have come to a type of madness on a personal level where I feel that all reality is subjective. And by that, what I mean is that we are We are constructing our reality all the time. And the reason we're stressed out is that we have accidentally crafted the wrong reality for ourselves. And this might sound mad, but let me speak for one more minute to explain. Anything that we pay attention to, this is as a yogi, anything you pay attention to, it grows in size. And if you come to my meditation sittings, the tip of your nose will feel as large as the New York Grand Central Station, because essentially it has been filled with your attention. It expands in size. So anything you pour your attention into, it becomes oversized, and then it stares at you. If it's good news, it becomes great news. If it's bad news, it looks terrible news. Everything is collapsing, right? So we have to learn to refocus, reframe ourselves. We have to say, look, in the wider scheme of things, we're Hindus, right? And if you think about how to reframe, is there an evil force that our God is fighting? And therefore, are we concerned that the evil force will win and our God will lose? No, it turns out Hindus do not believe in this evil force theory. Therefore, if you see an enemy winning, well, just reframe a little, just zoom back a little and just look at the whole picture. The enemy is also God playing the enemy, right? So just relax. And in Puneetji's lecture, there was a question that Ashishji had posed about Sharanagati, the sense of surrender. Once you relax and you realize that, look, all of this is the Leela that the creator has, that person is also the creator. How can you be angry at God, right? That person also has the same consciousness that you have, right? And so you can then begin to relax that it's okay. It's similar to, when you're at home with mom when we were little children, mom took care of things. So that sense of surrender is what we need. Just relax. You're in the presence and inside of this consciousness. And so you can relax in that knowing and surrender this. Then it's not that you can surrender and be completely limp and not engage in action. No, but engage in action that you can engage in. You can't go and solve Karnataka elections. You can't go solve this other Varnangar thing. You do your work, right? That God sort out everything else he's dealing with. That let him enjoy whatever he's creating. No, so being Hindus, I think we have the power to reframe. We have the power to refocus. Completely unrelated again to this lecture. I was watching a documentary on how vision works. It turns out at any given point of time, we're paying attention to only 1% of the sphere that our eye could see. Everything else is being filled in by the brain, right? And that's why I'm trying to explain my madness. That's why I'm saying that even while seeing, 99% of what we are seeing is filled in. It is constructed at the back of the head by our brains. And that's with seeing, which is only one of the 5 faculties. Imagine everything else. We are not perceiving the world as it is. We are perceiving the world entirely in a subjective manner. We are creating and crafting our world. So the stress that we're experiencing, we have the potential to reframe it for ourselves. We have the ability to change the angle of view a little and see how that sits. And that's my comment, that we can let these things affect us. And I'm not saying this that I'm immune to all of this. I say I'm a yogi and I give these talks, but I myself go through these experiences. But here, these are the things that I use. I also use ritual a lot to frame my own, to manage my own experiences. And I found them very helpful. I have a cleaning ritual, when I'm currently all alone at home, like there's no one else at home. And so when my children come or when my wife comes and they leave, or my mom was here and she leaves, I go through this process of grieving because, of course, I have to come back to being alone in this huge house, right? And what is my process for grieving? My kids joke about it because I grieve by cleaning. I'll go to my daughter's room and I'll clean it out. I'll do her laundry. She doesn't need the laundry, I'll just do it because it helps me process and come to the state of balance, right? And then I'm fine. And those are just things that you do. The rituals allow us, having rituals beforehand allows us to find our center, find our balance, and not be swayed by this daily fluctuation of fortune that we're experiencing. And with that, I give it back to you, Prachi.
Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you so much, Gauravji. Thank you so much, Shankarji, for bringing this up. Because ever since Modi ji has become Prime Minister, trust me, I have been like, every time there has been a issue, like, big issue in India, I can't sleep here. I couldn't sleep here. And then my mom said, oh, he is way more capable than you think. So leave it to him and have a peaceful sleep. So thank you so much, Gauravji, for touching on those, because I really was going to say after Shankarji brought this up to put some light on it, because yes, we do have these kinds of issues from time to time. I remember when I was we were growing up and we had lots of games to play, board games like Ludos and Monopoly and this and that. And there were still some times when we were bored. And my grandma always said, what's with this new term of I'm bored? Like, just go have a quick walk on the hill, do some gardening and you will be fine. And now I think now the kids now have so many things and yet they get bored. So I can now relate to my grandma. It's like, what's with this bored, I'm bored kind of concept. But I think that's very beautifully said, Gauravji. Thank you so much for that. Gauravji, you did mention two things, if I can elaborate. Maybe I'll do it after the whole group has discussed. So if that's okay, I'll hand it over to Nandita ji to share. She's last in queue, and then we'll hand it over to others who would like to say a few things. Nandita ji, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, please, if you can share. Thank you so much.
Okay, you can hear me, right? Okay. Well, I'm last in the group. I did not realize that. Okay, so a lot of the points have been covered, but I think a few things that I'll just talk about briefly is that, stress, we all kind of live with it, and we kind of think it's normal, nothing to worry about. And we all have we have set up different baselines for what is considered as a normal stress level. But listening to Dr. Bhatt was interesting in the sense that because he touched upon the slow degenerative diseases that come because of constant exposure to stress. So that was a good reminder that why balance is okay, or should be a focus of our lives, current lives, where stress cannot be avoided, but should be managed. So that was good. Broken heart syndrome, I knew about it, but the term, I always knew it as the Takotsubo, this thing, but there are a lot of Hindi poetries and shairis have been written about Dil Toot Gaya kind of thing. So it was good that there's a reality to it also. Other thing that I liked about his lecture was the analogy that he gave. Some of the analogies were really, they struck home, like about tennis and golf. Like tennis you win by defeating, by making the other person fail, and golf you win by excelling your own skills. So I like that this is something that we should be, if using sports as an analogy for improvement, self-improvement, that's a good way to look at things. The 3 T's that he talked about, take time, touch, and talk. Those are important things. Touch is so underrated, or let's say overrated sometimes. We don't utilize it, underutilized, I should say. Touch is so underutilized these days. We forget the power of that physical touch that we can have on each other. So I think that was important reiteration. We shy away these days, right? Everything has to be so correct. Our behavior has to be so correct, but touch is an important tool that we must learn to utilize. The theta waves, what he talked about, it was interesting that, there are ways to measure it. And even if you don't measure it, he's shown that video clip. So that would be such a simple thing to do, right? Just deep breathing, think of, visualize imagery. Such a great, simple tool for self-healing. I really like that. Then coming to Dr. Puneetji's lecture about grieving, it was good to note that mourning, when she differentiated between mourning and grieving, that mourning is more like an external expression of your thoughts and feelings, and grieving is more internal experience, very personal. So therefore, it can be subjective also, right? People should not be expecting how long the grieving period should be. And then talking about the types of griefs, that was also good. Sometimes you just say, I'm grieving, but understanding the differences between the types of griefs, like if it's prolonged, complicated, compounded, and what was that, disenfranchised. That was a new thing that I learned about. We didn't have a group discussion this time, like in a Zoom setting, but we put our thoughts in our group chat. And Srimala ji had a very good point. She said, what about finding relief at death? Is it possible that if somebody has been going through a really long suffering period, there's no coming out of it, like a chronic illness, and you just want this person to be liberated, and that death is actually a relief. So you may not be grieving. Maybe not. Maybe it'll, you will grieve the loss, but should we be addressing? Should somebody judge other person because they are relieved that this person left? And that made me think of my mother. She had Alzheimer's, so it was a very long goodbye. So it was almost like anticipatory grief. I'm saying goodbye, and grieving period starts even before the person actually dies. So that is an anticipatory grief. That is also something that we must consider, that is something that happens to a lot of people, and we'll find those people also. One other thought that came to my own mind was about, when somebody dies, somebody very close to you dies, and there's a term that is called as smashan vairagya. And so understanding that the smashan vairagya and grieving periods, they can follow similar timelines, but how should one, or maybe not, but how can one differentiate is this a normal phenomena that somebody is going through, where there's so much of virakti, they say in the word, you're so disenchanted with everything, but it's not clinically, you wouldn't call it like somebody's truly depressed, right? So that would be something, to understand when you are trying to console somebody, understanding that difference. And then Punitji mentioned about control fallacy, that control the thought that, oh, I cannot control a situation can lead to anxiety. But the flip is also true, that if you have the control to make a decision that could impact somebody's life, like I have a friend and her mother was pretty sick, and she made the decision that I'm going to put my mother in hospice, and it took 7 days for the mother to pass away. And so she had the control, but it brought severe anxiety to her, relief, anxiety, everything coupled together. So having control can also give you that that level of anxiety that comes with that power, I guess. It can also come with guilt later at some point. So just, thought, food for thought is like the societal pressures, the expectations from family about, and that I say from my personal experience, that expectations from the family about when the grieving should stop. Everyone moves towards that acceptance phase at very different pace. So, it can lead to conflicting emotions around the grief expression. So as counselors, our supportive role is very important, because there are so many nuances to this whole process and whole expressions. Griefs can come in waves, it ebbs, recedes, pounds you, catches you unawares for years. So these are very complex situations, and I liked her thought that 6 months is never enough, and nobody can define in a general broad category. So very illuminating, very thought-provoking sessions, both sessions, and really liked a lot to think about. So that was my my 3 minutes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Nandita ji. Is there anyone who hasn't perhaps represented or hasn't put the name down but would like to?
Ashanji?
On group, behalf of group 3, Ken?
Yeah, please go ahead, Ashanji.
Yeah, please go ahead. Thank you.
It was very insightful to hear all my friends, all my colleagues share their thoughts on stress and everything. And what I thought would be worth sharing to the group, because I didn't hear it mentioned, was the powerful use of ashwagandha. Now, ashwagandha is actually known as the king of Ayurvedic herbs. And what was interesting is most of the techniques that were discussed and were shared are techniques that I also used to follow, and I still do. And it's been very useful. But in COVID, when the shock factors that were beyond control were really impactful, it made me realize that even though on the surface we might have dealt with the stress and the anxiety and all that other situation, what happens is the mind and the body are actually disconnected at a level where the mind is quick to respond and give the solution and move forward. But even our bodies actually absorb stress at a certain level. And sometimes when the body absorbs this stress underlying without us even realizing it, it actually compounds over time to a point where everything is just going normally and suddenly anxiety sets in. And these were interesting experiential moments during COVID when you are managing a factory and all your supply chains are locked out, all these lockdowns come into picture, you have staff to pay salaries for, and there's so many factors that come into play that you then start to realize, so you're dealt with the mind stress by doing the chanting, the meditation, and the conversations that we have. And yes, right eating and exercise deals with the body side, but sometimes it came to my understanding, and this is an area I'm still exploring, so I'm still a learner on these tracks. I found that these Ayurveda and herbs are also an important component for us to actually incorporate into our practices when and where required. And what is surprising is just a spoon of ashwagandha can literally, it's not like a high herb, but it's like a herb that really, it's a concoction of herbs that really calm the body down to an extent where you're able to see things much clearer. And it's just a fascinating experience. And I think there's a lot that is still yet to be explored in our ancient knowledge systems on how we use nature's gifts around us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashimji. Anyone else?
I just wanted to comment on what Ashimji said on ashwagandha and other herbs, right? So I'm always reminded of in Hanuman Chalisa, Ram Rasayan Tumre Pasa. So Rasayan, right? So herbs are very important. Or in the US we call them herbs. Everywhere else they're called herbs, but they're important and a good way to de-stress. I use ashwagandha myself, and it's I highly recommend it as well. There's another thing that you were saying that I wanted to respond to, but it's slipped my mind. So when it comes back, I'll say it. But thank you for your comments.
Anyone else?
On what Mayaji said, I agree with you. So to reduce dependency, you can't keep taking the same medicine all the time. Your body will otherwise get used to it. So you have to, I mean, at least this is what I do. I alternate, and so some days I'll have one, some days the other. So I'm not getting used to one kind of one particular rasayana. Yeah.
I feel with any vitamins or whatever, also, if we are in tune with our bodies, it literally tells you, you know what, I need to take this, or I need to take that, or reduce it, or don't take it at all. And I've found that very helpful when one is actually in tuned with oneself. So yeah, I was also taking ashwagandha for a bit, and I'm on a break, and probably will start soon again. But thank you.
Namaste. Namaste, everyone.
Yes, Updeshji.
Namaste. Just adding up to our discussion a little bit about the stress and the grief happening in the kids in the younger age, very young age, how it affects them, and the role of the rituals in our when we have a loss of our loved one, because traditionally we have been following rituals when somebody is when we lost someone in our when we lost our some loved one. But with the time, those rituals, particularly the ritual of that the people you're nearer and dearer, they come for visiting the place when we lose someone. That ritual is day by day, the time is going off. Now you find very few people they come to visit because we have our change in our lifestyle. So how we can manage this thing. And the other thing was just want to have a discussion on how it affects to the kids, particularly the stress, because before the word stress was, I think, a couple of years, this word, the stress word was was not very familiar to the common people, but now it's very famous even in the very young age, because what I feel there could be one reason of pushing more information in a very less span of time. Other thing is the use of medicine to handle grief and stress. It may help for a period, but with the long-term solution is the only one has to find I think the way of life. That's called in the previous lecture we studied the lifestyle. Just if Gauravji and you can throw some lights on kids and the rituals. Thank you.
So Deji, I didn't understand the question on kids and rituals. Would you mind clarifying?
Yeah, how this thing affects the kids, because we make them to learn the word stress in a very young age nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is it's true for us, true more now, where we have a very poor sense of self. In fact, I written a note about this 3 months ago. I haven't published it anywhere, but we have lost touch with ourselves, and that's causing the loneliness, the distress, the stress, and so on. Because essentially, because we don't know how we are feeling, we can't do anything to improve it, right? Because the only way to know how we're feeling now with the internet is if people like our post, then we are feeling great. If people don't like our post, we're not feeling great. Whereas the answer should be right here in the heart. But we have, because the senses, so my thesis in that particular note was that senses have been sharpened by technology. And so the bright light of our senses has made it darker inside. Whereas when the senses were not so dark, the insides were well illuminated. So imagine having floodlights all the way outside, then you can't see anything inside because your sense, you can't see it. And so what's happening is we can see more, consume more, touch more, but we can't experience more. We can't feel our own experience as much. And that has led to this sense of lack of joy, lack of taste, lack of engagement with anything. Because real joy comes from within. Real joy is an experience that we must get used to, right? How are you doing? I'm doing great is a studied, rehearsed answer. But to truly feel great, you should feel it in the heart. You should know how the heart feels when it's feeling great. It is a pleasure to meet you, my friend. means that I should experience literally pleasure in my heart upon meeting someone. So our energies are matched, and I suddenly experience this tingling of pleasure in my heart because we no longer feel our own experience, inner experience, on account of the proliferation of external senses, the magnification of external senses. Because we don't feel our own experience, we no longer feel joy in anything. And because we no longer feel joy in anything, everything is stressful. Things that we could have done previously, we feel stressed about. And we feel stressed about much smaller things than people earlier might have had been stressed about. So it's not just our children, we have the same thing ourselves. I think as a species, we are in tremendous spiritual danger because we no longer experience ourselves. And that we care less for anything, and that's part of my. I can send the note over to you, but I think that's what's wrong with the world. We no longer care for anything. Nothing brings us joy, so the world can go to hell for all I care. Right, and so the only way to improve the status of the world and reduce all this stress is to reconnect with our own selves, our own experience, moment to moment. Yes, and so that's what we need to teach our kids, but we need to learn that ourselves. That I don't know if Kailash is here, but Kailash is here. Kailash would describe to me Boji. Bo is actually his dog, and Kailash can describe it. But the way Kailash described it, he said, "Look, this dog and dogs in general are in a state of spiritual bliss, right? They as long as they're at home, they're fine. They're like bellies up, and they're all good to go. And that state of bliss is what we are lacking." Kailash, you might want to describe it because I'm obviously paraphrasing.
Hey everybody, hi. I'm just listening in, and I don't want to miss any class. I just want to see how everybody's conveying their thoughts and interacting and so on. Yeah, I basically like, and I'm a very big dog lover. I've had dogs, and I kind of communicate with them. Just from the eyes, I could tell how the dog is feeling, that kind of feelings. But when people talk about, tell me about moksha, what is the ultimate state of happiness? I said, imagine a dog inside the house. And there's a whole bunch of people, but the dog has concluded that he is absolutely secure, absolutely happy, well fed, all the systems are working well. Then he goes right in the middle of the living room in the carpet, and he just lies down belly up, and all his legs are all up in the air, and he is gone. He is absolutely in total bliss. So if you want to explain bliss and moksha and those concepts to any human being, all you have to do is point them to a dog in that condition. And it is so amazing. It's so amazing how these guys, basically they have a checklist. Okay, no threat, tummy is full, and the boss is around, the favorite person in the house. They want that person to be around for that state of being. And yeah, it's a good time of the day. And yeah, everybody's having a good time, whatever they're doing. I got to take my bliss time now. So that to me is, I think, a good, so whenever you're stressed out, think about the doggy with 4 legs up in the air. Okay. So anyway, I miss my dog, and I always remember that it walks with me and that belly up.
Thank you so much, Kailash. Yeah, do we have anyone else to share or maybe ask a question or any comments? We still have 45 minutes, so we can make use of Gauravji's time. He is here. Same with Kailash as well.
So there's a book on loneliness, social isolation and loneliness in older adults. I sent it on the group chat. This is the study that Puneetji had referenced. It's a wonderful and very long, like 317-page book, but you should skim through it. this is the defining for those of us in westernized societies, maybe not in South Africa, but other societies. This is a societal problem. Social isolation and loneliness has definitive health impact, and of course, the impact on the society. And the reason we created this course is this. Kailash and I were discussing a couple of days ago that what is our job? We are here as sathis, which is a Hindi Sanskrit word for companions, right? We are there to eliminate this social isolation and therefore the loneliness and therefore the health impact of that. And how do you fix a broken society? How do you fix a broken heart? It's the same, right? You start beginning with connection. That's what we are training to do. That's what we're hoping. When you finish this course, you become these beacons of light that other people are attracted to, and you change their lives. Imagine the impact that this will have on future generations, where societies can be healed again and reconnect with each other. Right now, we're obviously heading in the opposite direction, where there's over-individualization, and now even with our own selves, we have been disconnected. This is a dystopian, terrible society to be in. And it does not come to a good end at any point, because we have lost connection with ourselves, we have lost connection with each other. And my sense is, if we let it run this way, any number of dystopian religions can take over, because if you don't value the other person, then what stops you from calling the other person an infidel and thinking that they're worthy of being raped or killed? And those dystopian religions will take place, will take over, because you no longer care for the other person. You no longer care for yourself. You no longer think that this life is worth living and all the fun is in the afterlife. Those ideas will take root. And the only way to stop that from happening is for this deep interconnection that we have to take place. And how is that going to happen? Through the Hindu ideas, our sense of cosmology, our deep well of practices, both Ayurveda and spirituality and everything else, they're made available to heal society. This is very important. This is why we're doing what we're doing. What we're doing is clearly madness, right? Because this is not logical what we're doing. If you wanted a Hindu studies course, you could go to a Hindu studies course. We've created a course that doesn't exist, right? It shouldn't exist, but it does, because we're crazy enough to think that what we are all doing together can make a difference, that it can heal the societies that we work in, because that's the only way humans can survive, because otherwise we'll nuke each other, or, and hopefully, or not go to this afterlife filled with, virgins and honey and milk, right? Hopefully we will find this life worth living, all of us humans, not just the Hindus. And that's why it's important for you to do what you have signed up to do, which is be this beacon of hope, be this companion offering hope and solace and comfort and perspective to everyone in the community. It's very important, because that's the only way to heal societies. I live in, Kailash and I, we live in California, in Silicon Valley. The technology it's not these religions that are creating the chaos, by the way. They have been around for 1,400 and 2,000 years. If they needed to create damage, they could have done it earlier. The problem is the technology and the philosophy underlying that technology is a dystopian thing. It completely dehumanizes everyone. I love technology as a tool, but not as a master. And our problem is that this dry, philosophical, binary creating, dehumanizing technology is more powerful than our hearts are. And the only way to fight that is to actually regrow our heart, reconnect with ourselves, feel and connect. And that has to happen. If we don't do it, 2 generations, 10 generations later, somebody will have to do it, because the other option is this dystopian slave state that happens. Again, because I have the mic and I'm talking, there are so many people, the terrorists, all of them, that have railed against technology in the same way. You look up the Una bomber, like an IQ 170 guy from Berkeley, super smart, and he's sending bombs to universities and airports. That's why he's called the Una bomber. And why? Because he rails against technology, because he says, again, high IQ guy, he says, technology is going in a direction where essentially it'll be a few masters and everyone else is a slave, doing only what technology tells them to do and aggregating power and wealth into the hands of a few. Now, why am I telling you this? What I'm saying is one way to do this is to stop the march of technology and send bombs to universities and airports. We don't believe that. We don't think that's the right way to do it. The right way to handle this is to know that we are friends with technology. We ourselves are half technology, half biology, right? We cook, we talk. These are things, we walk, we do things that are not, other creatures are not doing. We love technology. We're built with technology. Our problem is we haven't let the spiritual side come through. And whose job is it? It is our job, because one of the few civilizations that retains this memory is us, our people. And we have the techniques, we have the systems of thinking and knowing that can actually make this difference. We have, it is incumbent upon us to bring these to life, right? And that's why this is an important mission. It's madness, obviously, but it's the sort of madness that we all need to sign up for, because otherwise what's going to happen is this loneliness will become rampant, social isolation will become rampant, other people will be dehumanized, and now you don't care if someone's bombing them. To hell with them, right? Do you want to be in that society? No, none of us should be in that society, because it won't be a society for too long, right? And eventually it'll break down. And so anyway, the point is, Hindus have a responsibility to practice this, to make this available to everyone, to help heal the societies. And that's why you need to do what you need to do.
Gauravji, I think I have one point to add. Yeah, very, very thoughtful reflections. And our, the CHT and our whole Sangha HCI, basically what we say is, if we can become more knowledge-based and have more wisdom, more wiseness, whatever, in terms of how to live, how to improve quality of life, first, we exercise it ourselves, and then we extend it to those around us, the community, the family, the people who are seeking service and all that stuff. I think a significant point is the one that has been raised before, and that is about children. Children basically emulate, and subconsciously or consciously, that's what they do, okay? So for example, if you're telling your children not to use those digital devices day in, day out, look at yourself and say, okay, what do they see? How do my children see me using this technology and these devices, okay? If you are excessively using them all day long, you can make big speeches to your children and they're gonna have zero effect in them, okay? Same thing about how we treat loneliness. How do we deal with depression? How do we deal with difficult situations? How do we deal with all the life's ups and downs? Children are watching us all the time and say, oh, okay, yeah, dad has a good friend circle. They do this, they play golf, they could play cards, they get together, they have whenever there's a thing, they call some friends. They will basically tend to emulate because they don't know any better. So they are most likely, you are the guide unconsciously. So I'm just saying that as you utilize all these things we're learning here, just be more aware, slightly more aware of your own conduct relative to those things that you are trying to teach your children, or you want them to kind of change their habits and their attitudes. Just reflect on your own. I think pretty common sense, pretty obvious, but I don't think we do it as much as we as much and as well as we need to do. So just a point about it.
Thank you, Kalaji. Any other reflections, questions, or comments? And Prachiji, you were saving something for now, right? So
yes, I do have one, actually 2 questions. First one is, when you were reflecting on Shankarji's representation, you mentioned that like anything we focus on, it expands in size. And as I would recall it from my childhood, boredom was a word slowly creeping in, but there was no such a thing as stress. My grandmother obviously had zero taste about the boredom or the stress. And now stress is like very big part of our lives. So do you think looking at the boredom and the stress constantly, is that why maybe stress is expanding in our lives? Or is that just like a true, the true reflection of stress really happening in our lives? That was one question. And then the second one was the documentary you mentioned about the vision. Can you please elaborate a little and let us know what the documentary is and where we can watch that so we can...
Sure. The easy
Thank
question is the documentary on vision. I will send it to you, post it.
Sweet,
It's a
thank you.
PBS documentary, and I'll share it.
Thank you. So
Your question was on Shankarji's thing, my reflection on that, right? What was it again? So what's the
so
specific
boredom and
boredom.
and
So-
stress,
so
yeah, they were
boredom
not
and stress.
there in...
Yeah. So actually now research has shown that the ability to be bored and to stay in that period of being bored is extremely important. This need for instant gratification, this need for always consuming. I'm guilty of that. My wife, you have a lot of intelligence, you want to consume a lot. This consuming thing, you have to find room to be bored. When my analogy here is, if you have people who farm, right? You have to let the farm remain fallow for the soil to regain its recharge, right? Regain its productive capacity. And what we're seeing is we don't have this appetite for boredom. Boredom is actually great, and learning to enjoy your own presence, just being is a very important learning. And now, thanks to the internet, this is a problem, thanks to the phones and everything. So my book that I wrote was Global Business in the Age of Destruction and Distraction. Distraction is huge business. Trillions of dollars are being spent on keeping us both distracted and outraged. And that's stopping us from being truly bored, truly unoccupied with anything, and truly enjoying our life and our moment. And that, I think, is creating all the stress, because there's no time for reflection, there's no time for clarification, and so on. Now, why we sleep is also the same thing, because the brain has all these toxins, and the spinal column is sending a whole bunch of fluids to flush everything out, and so the brain can be fresh again. That's why when you don't sleep well, you feel fuzzy, and then next day you have a bad day, because there's toxins floating around in the brain that are stopping the vibrancy of thought that you are used to. And it's the same thing, which is you need these processes. That's why we fast, also the same thing, right? Because we're letting the systems recover. Very important. And so whether it's fasting or sleeping or just engaging in boring things, these are all important. And that's why yogis, I can manage to be highly distracted I consume vast volumes of content, which is unhealthy, but I compensate by meditating and just being a boring person overall. So that allows me to compensate for that. But I feel that I should be less interested in things and let things settle down myself. So I shouldn't be lecturing other people on it. But your point is valid.
No, I want to bring up something else. When my kids were in school and college, I never encouraged them to go to summer school. I said, no, I just want you to run around, goof off, like not have a schedule, So then you really recharge, right? And you might not have immediate results at that time, but when they grow, when they're adults, like so many people burn out by the time they're in their 30s, because they've already used up their energy, right? But if you pace it out, then you have more to give when you're 60 or 70, or and I always say, if Newton was not lazing under an apple tree, we wouldn't have the Newton's laws of physics.
That's not, Newton was not lazing under an apple tree. Those are lies. And essentially there was COVID going on, or the equivalent of COVID, and he was sent home from his university. So he was chilling around at home, but
he was a
it's a story. Hey, but no, this
Okay,
boredom is very important. It's super important, and that's why I've created an offering. Anyone's interested, I'm running free sessions where essentially you bring your work day calendar, and in your workday calendar, you come to me. I will ask you to declutter your mind, focus on one thing, and I will hold your hand there. I said, no, you cannot focus on anything else, right? And every time I do it, people are shocked at how much focus they're capable of doing and how much they got done. Because this thing is hard, I'm going to struggle with it. Oh, this other problem, oh, that problem. But when you struggle with the problem, one problem, then automatically the best ideas begin to pop up. They bubble up from below. And so Kabir Das said, Jin khoja tin paiya gehre pani pat, main bori duban dari, rahi kinare bat, which I'll translate in English. Whatever treasures I sought, I found them on the shore. Right? I found them in the deep end of the water. All right. Whatever treasures I seek, I found them in the deep end of the water. But me, a coward afraid of drowning, I sit by the shore. The shores of our consciousness is the top of our awareness, right? All the clutter and dross that's floating around, that's not where the treasures are. The treasures are deep inside. The insights that bubble up, the things you know already but don't remember. They're sitting, waiting to be recognized, but the clutter on the top of the consciousness prevents us from experiencing those insights, which is why when what's his name is bathing in this tub of water, he has this eureka moment. Because what else can he do in this tub of water but think about this problem that he's solving, and he figures out, eureka, I've solved for density or what have you. Which is why this guy with his Apple situation, or this very bored patent clerk who in 1 year writes 5 papers and essentially gets a Nobel Prize, reinvents physics, right? Because he's a bored patent clerk. He has excess IQ left over that he deploys to these thought experiments, and that's Einstein. The point is, boredom is an extremely essential tool, and we have lost the art of being bored. And I myself, in fact, this productivity theater, I feel now several decades into my career that I am a productivity nerd. And as Kailash Janusha, I like being busy. The problem with being busy and being a productivity nerd is you don't have time for other people. You don't have time for the nice things. I don't drink, I don't socialize, but I find friends that actually do drink and socialize are doing well in their careers, better than I am, because they've found ways to relax and connect. Right. Where me, on the other hand, I'm always trying to, I'm like a monkey with a puzzle, right? Always trying to solve it. And that it turns out in the long run, you want to relax, you want to ease up, you want to connect. Kailashji, for example, he's amazing because he tells me caught up this weekend is the Kentucky Derby, and I've got odds to track, right? Because that's what you do to engage yourself, to entertain yourself, and get more joy, more juice out of that sugarcane, so to speak. So that being said,
Thank you so much, Gauravji.
Gauravji, tomorrow is the second big race called Preakness. That is
oh yes,
3 races, the triple. So this is the second one. So I've been doing my handicapping on that one.
I read that whole series. Dick Francis, he used to write about racing and mysteries and all that as a kid. He was my favorite author growing up. So I know about all the races that happened in UK, in Paris, in France, just through the books.
But the most thing that
Have you ever been, Kailashji? Have you ever in person?
Oh yeah, I lived there. When I was in Kentucky, I was a guest of the governor every Derby, because I was a IBM CEO for the state. So there was always a governor's van would come pick us up, and we would be taken. It's a grand kind of a, but the game particular race only lasts 2 minutes. So it's all year round fanfare for 2 minutes event tomorrow. But it's this handicapping of the horses is a very complex mathematical and intuitive exercise. You go through the pedigree, their weight, their past performance, the weather conditions, the jockey, the trainer. So there's about multivariant, about 20 different variables. And you have to decide of the 20, this race is only 7 horses, which is going to be amazingly simple actually compared to Derby, which is about 20 horses. And the Derby, I was able to predict number 1 and 2, called exacta. And so that is, but it doesn't always happen. Sometimes it happens. You remember those times, all the time you lose, you tend to forget them, So, but it's very challenging and joyful in a way. And those are lovely animals. As long as they, so yeah, Gaurav, you gave it.
I lived vicariously through Dick Francis with horses and horses.
Oh, yeah. It's
Shankarji? Shankarji, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just on a lighter note, when Gauravji spoke about getting more juice out of sugarcane, here's the sugarcane for you guys. There you
Do you have a machine that squeezes it out? Do you have
No,
that?
yes, I got the machine.
Wow.
Yes.
All 32 of those.
Hey,
Yeah.
he must be a mean father.
Gaurav-ji,
My father would not cut it for us.
Which of the 9 rasas does the sugarcane bring out?
Enjoy Rasa.
Yeah. The
Thank
sweet
you.
The fun is in the chewing of it, I think.
It's a Ikshu Rasa. Ikshu Rasa is sugarcane juice.
It's very easy to plant it. Like you have the seed, the one that from germinates, and sorry, it's there you go.
Yes.
You didn't grow this at home, did you?
Yeah.
You did? Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
So
That's
this is how I myself busy and happy and so
It's
gardening
like a
is what I
bamboo,
do.
right? It's like a bamboo plant. It grows multiple branches, or is it one branch per stick? How does it grow?
Yes, multiple branches.
Oh,
I hope I could show you guys.
walk to the garden.
The farmers market near my house, summer they bring the machine and they
Make the juice.
juice like in Bombay.
They know the desi population there.
Yeah, here it's not desi. Everybody loves it, right? Because this area
More popular with desis.
Yeah.
Do they put a little bit of salt and that black salt?
No, limbu and adrak.
No,
Yeah.
Can you guys see the plant?
No, your background is
Blurred.
Oh, background.
Sorry.
Wow.
I think you should take a picture and then post it.
Yeah, post it. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's,
I'll do that.
that's super fantastic.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, thank you.
all right, wonderful. Prachiji, I think we have done, right? Anything else you need us to cover?
If
There
anybody
you go.
wants to share.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
Yeah, that's nice. It's really good.
Gauravji,
It'll
If
keep
anybody
coming.
else wants to share, Kailashji, you
No,
may
no,
want
no,
to
no,
come
you
to
have
Melbourne.
I joined the class a little late, and Gauravji, I hope Gauravji covered the significance of those who are wanting to graduate, for them to connect with we sent a letter out, Ushaji sent a letter out. So please do contact your RF, because RF don't know what status you have. So that is very important. And number 2, those of you who are considering entering chaplaincy in the fall, talk to us, explore with us. Even if you're slightly interested, I don't mind talking to you. You can call or have a chat.
And any time of day, if you want to talk in the early morning or in late night, we have you can talk to Ushaji and Nishaji respectively.
That's right. That's right. We cover both morning and evening.
Niranjana Ben, your hand was up. Sorry.
Yes, I was just started learning new things is also very important, not getting bored, because I just have a visiting friend coming from India, And she is into bird watching, and she brought a binocular for me. And here in Sydney, we just whole month we were exploring and reading the books, and it is so amazing. So learning new things is that I just wanted to add that.
And bird watching is extraordinarily fascinating.
Yeah,
Identify the
she got
bird.
me into bird watching. She got books, she's showing me, and we just had whole month of bird watching and exploring. And it's really fun. Yeah. So I mean, that's when we were talking about getting bored, said there are things and hobbies we can develop at any age.
Go to safari in Africa and you can watch animal and birds alike. Extraordinary. And some of those birds are so uniquely African, that's really.
No, my Chachaji and Chachiji, he was 78 when they took the, the dog sledding in Alaska. So they did that. And I said, wow. And he said, don't wow me, Usha. There was a lady in a wheelchair. This was on her bucket list. And she was 87 at that time. And she went dog sledding. So he said, I was so inspired. And even today, for 15 minutes, he's 87 now. Sit on the floor and he'll play his veena for 15 minutes.
Wow.
That's it. That's a real life, real living.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Kailash, we have in Melbourne, we have Melbourne Cup Day horse races.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, you should come here.
I have been to Australia a few times, actually, mostly Sydney. And then I toured around the country, but Sydney was my main stop. And
oh no, you should come to Melbourne. It's a big hype over. It's not actually a hype; it's a real thing, and it just they say the races are when the nation stops.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing, and when the races go, when they're
it's the second Tuesday of November.
Yeah, when they're broadcasting on the TV, we literally stop work, and the managers, nobody says a word about it. We literally leave the work and go watch the races.
Understood. I was there for the Sydney New Year's Eve with those 4 million people at the bridge. So I have seen that madness.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I think Gauravji and I, one of us, probably next year, if we can get the good cohort admission going on in Australia, we'll probably stop by and get to meet many people. We're talking.
That would be awesome. That would be really awesome.
Speaking of which, I have a question I should have asked earlier. I did a talk on the Hindu calendar at an interfaith event. And because I was talking about Uttarayan and Dakshinayan, they said, how do your Hindus in Australia handle their life? Because when it's Uttarayan here, it must be Dakshinayan there, right? So do they go to Swarga on different times of the year? How does it work? So I promise to ask.
I always get that question.
Huh?
I always get that question when I try to explain them all the, when I'm trying to explain any festival in my office and what we relate to. Because in for Uttarayan, the festival, we would have sesame seed, til laddu or anything. But here it's like 40-degree day on that day, in January. So you shouldn't be eating anything that would any. But yes, it's always and they're like, how do you guys count? Because your festivals, and then all the festival that you have in Sawan, where you should take cold shower and all, which is like freezing for us. So we can't follow any traditions here because it's completely opposite for us.
Yeah.
And Melbourne is like London, we have 4 weather in one day.
Yeah.
It's today it's really bad, but it's 4 weather in one day. I had someone visiting from London the other day, and I'm like, sorry, we're not welcoming you in a very good weather. And she's like, I'm used to this. So for her, it was normal.
Feeling at home. Yeah.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this interaction. So I will thank Ushaji for asking me to sit in for Puneetji.
Did I just ask or did I twist your arm? What did I do?
Okay, truth be told, Ushaji runs an Om Dollar balance with me where she's currently in the negative because she's asked me too many favors. So she said, there's one way to have amnesty is you give me more Om dollars by doing this class. So this is an amnesty for her.
Take care. I'll say
good.
bye to all of
Thank
you.
you so much.
That's to go to. Take care, everybody. And
All right, we'll do the closing prayers. We'll,
Yeah.
yes, you all do it. Thank you.
all right, thank you very much. We'll do the closing prayers. Please sit comfortably. Sit with your back straight, back, neck, and head in a straight line. Close your eyes gently and just begin to slow down your breath. Enjoy your breath moment to moment. Bring your palms together in Namaskar Mudra. We're going to chant Om once and then the closing prayer, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. Exhale completely. Take a deep breath. Inhale. Om.
Oh.
Inhale and chant. Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina.
Inah.
Sarve
Sarve
Santu
santu
Niramaya.
nimamaya.
Sarve
Sarve
Prashanti
prashanti pashantu.
Ma
Ma
Kaschit
chastu
Abhag Bhave.
bhave.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Grab your and forward in a deep sense of surrender. Come back up, breathing in. Release your palms, rub your palms together to generate some heat, and then gently cup your eyeballs with the warm palms, and then blink your eyes open and pull your palms back. Namaskar. Thank you very much. Have a good day and a good rest of your weekend.
Dhanyavad. Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Thank you, everyone.
Day, everybody.